Hey guys, it's Missy back with a second edition of Finding the Area of Compound Shapes. So on Friday, you watched the first video, which is basically an introduction. So today I want you to watch the video, which you're doing right now. And then when you're done with the video, I'm giving you a choice. This is your choice. You can do the 5th grade EE9 skill, which is easier, and get up to 60%. Or if you really feel like you got this is pretty easy for you, you can do the 6th grade FF24 up to 60%. It's a little more challenging. So I'm giving you a choice. So if you don't feel as comfortable, it's pretty much these boxy shapes, which are much easier. Or if you feel a little more comfortable, they have like 3 shapes to it, or triangles or things, and you can work on it there. So it's totally up to you. Again, if you're thinking, hey, you want to go into honors next year, you should be doing the tougher skill. Okay. So let's take a look at the very first one that I have. So remember we talked about a compound shape is the same thing as a complex shape. And what that is a shape that is made up of 2 different shapes. And it depends on how you break up the shape on how you would solve it. Some people see it differently than others. So for instance, when I look at this shape, I go, oh, okay, it's a box stacked on top of another box. So that's the way I would break it up. You can also look at it this way. Some people see it and they have this rectangle going up and down and then another one on its side. It's completely up to you, whatever you feel most comfortable with, what you think it looks like. But I'm going to go back to my original because that's what I see when I look at it. Okay, so let's solve this out. So when you take a look at it, now you have your 2 shapes that you have broken apart. Remember that it gives you, dog toy going off in the back there. It gives you some measurements, but you have to kind of imply the other ones. So for instance, this whole side is 6, right? This whole side is 6. And this little side is 3. So we have to infer that this part right here is also 3, because 3 plus 3 equals 6. Okay? Same thing with this bottom part is 9, and this part here is 5. So I have to infer that this little side right there is 4, because 5 plus 4 equals a total of 9. Once you have that worked out, then you can go ahead and solve the problem. So I'm going to solve this first part here, this first block. And I know it is 5 times 3, and 5 times 3 is 15. So block number 1 is 15 yards squared. I need to add that to the bottom, so I'm going to figure that out. So I know this is 9, and I know this is 3. It's hard to see because I drew the line over it, but it's still 3. And 9 times 3 is 27, so that box is 27. And then I'm just going to add those 2 together, 15 plus 27, and you get an area that is equal to 42 yards squared. Okay, so that was an easy example. Let's go on and do another one. So the next example here, I could break this into 2 different kinds of shapes completely, but I'm always going to work smarter rather than harder. So what do I mean by that? Well, if I take a look at the shape over here, I can break it into, I see automatically a rectangle and a triangle stuck next to each other. Okay, so that's one way to look at it. And then you know how to solve a rectangle, you know how to solve a triangle. Some people see 2 trapezoids. Now let me get down the middle here. See 2 trapezoids stacked on top of each other. So you have one trapezoid and another trapezoid. That's fine too. It's a little bit harder because the area of a trapezoid formula is tougher than the triangle and the square. But again, it's up to you on how you see it. I'm going to go back and I'm going to take the easy way out because, hey, that's what mathematicians like to do, try to make things or try to get the easy way out. I suggest you do that as well. All right, so if I have a rectangle and I have a triangle, I can do the rectangle first. So the rectangle area equals length times width. So its area equals 8 times 13. And 8 times 13 gives me a 104 when I plug that into the calculator. Okay, so that's the first part. Now I've got to look at the triangle. Okay, so when I do the triangle for the second part, remember area is equal to, you can either do 1/2 times base times height, or you can do the base times the height and divide that all by 2. That's the one I prefer when I'm working it out. And we got to figure out what we're going to put in. Well, I know here's the base of my triangle, right? It's laying on its side, but that's okay. If this side over here on the left is 8 inches, this has to be 8 inches. So my base is 8 inches. That's good to know, right? Times my height. And I have to figure that out. And the way I'm going to figure that out is I know this side's 13 and I know the total is 19. So this part right here, the height, the bottom to the top, has to be 6 because 13 plus 6 is 19, right? So that's going to be 6. So it's 8 times 6, and don't forget the most important part, we got to divide that by 2, okay? So I'm going to multiply this out and try to figure out what the end result to, right? So I'm going to do 8 times 6, and I get 48. I get the 48, and I have to divide that by 2, and that's going to give me 24. So what's my last step on this? Oh yeah, I have to now go back, and I've got to make sure that I have plugged in the right numbers, right? That I have gone, or I've added the two parts together. So if I have 104 for the rectangle, and my triangle is 24, I just have to add those out, and I should get 100, or area is equal to 128 inches squared. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Same thing. Again, you could look at this as two trapezoids, or you could look at it as a square and a triangle. That's the way I'm going to look at this one, because that one makes a little bit more sense to me. So I'm going to break off my 2 pieces. I'm going to do the square first. It's length times width, right? And it's 7 times 7 on this one. So I know 7 times 7 is 49. Okay, so that's my my square. Now I have to go back and do the triangle. Again, if this side is 7, then this side has to be 7. So my base is 7. So when I do my formula, area equals base times height divided by 2. I'm going to plug in my numbers. Area is equal to, and for the base, it's 7 times, and now I've got to figure out the height. Again, if the whole thing is 11 and this side is 7, then I know that my height must be 4, right? Because 7 plus 4 is 11. So my height is 4, and then I'm going to divide this whole thing by 2. Okay, so when I go and do this, our area is equal to 7 times 4 is 28. 28 divided by 2, I get 14. Am I done yet? Nope. I've got to take the area from my original square and add it to the area of the triangle, which is 14. So my overall area, the total thing, area is equal to 63 meters squared. Okay, I'm going to do one more example. Next, we have this shape. This is kind of funky, right? And sometimes our books like to give us real world examples. And with this real world example, it looks like a park, right? It looks completely like a park. So you have to figure out what shapes you see. When I look at this, I see a trapezoid sitting on top of a rectangle. Okay, and that's the way I'm going to work this out. So I'm going to take now and figure out my rectangle. Oh, this big long one is 9 times 2. So I know this rectangle here is 18 kilometers squared. Okay, so I have that part. Now I have to go up back and do the trapezoid. And again, I got to use the right formula for the right shape. So a trapezoid, area is equal to the height times base 1 plus base 2 divide the whole thing by 2. Okay, so when I go back and plug in my numbers, all right, area is equal to the height. Well, the height of it is just this side right here, and it's got a big arrow pointing to it and telling me it's 2 kilometers. So it's 2 times base 1 plus base 2. So base 1's easy, it's 2 kilometers, right? Base 2 is a little harder because they don't give me that measurement, but I can figure out if this whole thing is 9 and this part is 4, this must be 5 because 5 plus 4 is 9. Okay, so I know my base 1 is 2 plus my base 2, which is 5, and then I would divide the whole thing by 2. Well, 2 plus 5 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14, right? 14 divided by 2 is 7. So I know that this part in here is 7 kilometers squared. So again, I have to put this measurement together with the second measurement, and I get a total of area is equal to 25 kilometers squared. Okay, and that's it. So I want you to remember what our goal for this week is. If I go back to the start here, I want you to watch the video, which you already did, and it's your choice, right? You get to pick this out, your choice. Either 5th grade skill of EE9, it's the easier of the two, it's more of these box-like shapes, up to 60%, or the 6th grade, which is a little more of a challenge, FF24 up to 60%. All right, guys, that's it. Have a great day.